Welcome to the Idaho Catholic Register Podcast, where faith meets real life. Today, we bring you a story that's raw, redemptive, and rooted in God's mercy. Sarah Deaton once stood in a place many fear behind prison walls, but her story doesn't end there. In fact, it's where her transformation began. After years of pain, loss, and searching, Sarah found not only freedom from a cell, but a deeper freedom in her soul. Through the help of St. Vincent de Paul and the embrace of a loving faith community, she reclaimed her dignity, rebuilt her life, and now walks in hope as a witness to what's possible through grace. This is not just a story about prison. It's a story about purpose, about healing, about the God who never gives up on us. This is Sarah Deaton's story.
So, several times, I've done 3 stints in prison. Well, actually 4, I guess, with my riders. But I've also been in and out of county a lot. So one of the experiences I'll tell you about, which was the hardest, was it was actually getting out of Elmore County, one of my 9-month stints there on a charge. So I would get out, and I really did want to change. This was after I'd lost my son. I really did want to change, but there was literally no resources. So you get out and you don't have not a dollar to your name.
Right.
The clothes that you came in on, you don't have a phone. You don't have a halfway house set up. So you get out and you're walking down the street with your little bag of commissary or whatever you collected while you were in jail. And what do you do? What do you do if you don't have any sober support? And that situation happened to me, I'm going to say, probably 10 times.
Right.
I didn't have my mom to call anymore. I didn't have any sober support in the community. So I'd walk down the street and, well, I know I need a phone. First things first, I know I need a phone and a place to go.
Right.
So,
but you have no money.
Right. Well, so where do I go? I go probably to the same house I got busted at before I went to jail to get a phone. And by the time I leave there, I'm high again.
Oh my gosh.
And, I don't want to blame anybody. It's not anybody's fault that I made that decision over and over again. But what do you do when you get out and you don't have a phone to call anybody, let alone? But
it's such a challenge to be able to, you walk out with you have hopes, dreams, and even an intense desire to make a change.
Yeah.
But there's so many obstacles to a successful pathway.
Yeah.
It's so many obstacles and unexpected ones at times too.
Yeah. Well, and what's normal for everybody else, I guess, what is normal? But what's normal for everybody else, A, B, C, you stay sober, you get a job, you stay away from the people you're supposed to. What's normal to lead like an everyday life? That's not normal to somebody in addiction.
Right.
I've lived 17 years of my life in addiction. That's the ABC just doesn't come naturally. You have to relearn it. You have to relearn, I can't associate with these people. You have to learn, I'm not stronger than the drug. One time will consume me.
Right.
You have to learn to do it all over again. And so with St. Vincent's, that's what it gave me, was it didn't just give me a job. It gave me a whole new family.
Right.
It gave me support. People who were trying to do the same thing I was doing.
Right. Well, talk about your experience. So you joined St. Vincent de Paul.
Yeah.
You stepped into transportation.
Yeah.
How was that so different for you? How did that help your trajectory and your recovery under those circumstances?
So I started at St. Vincent's my 3rd day out.
Okay, so that was a fast process.
So right out the gate, I remember being so nervous for my interview, by the way. Bobby, he was like, I want to know everything, tell me it. So I went through my list of charges, and at the end of it, he was like, all right, when can you start? And I remember taking a deep breath in that, because he didn't judge me because of all that. He just wanted to see if I would be honest.
Right.
He didn't care about what was before. He asked me, what do you want to do today? And what do I know about St. Vincent's? And I said, well, I know they help me. I would like to do that. So I started as a driver. I remember the thing that really got me hooked is about 2 weeks in, we went to do a voucher delivery.
Yeah.
Yeah. This family who had been homeless for 3 years had just gotten to a place, not just got into it even, it had been 6 months since they got into their place. And they had been sleeping on air mattresses. They had nothing else in their home. And so me and my partner, we show up with these beds, and these little kids, they must be 4, 6, and the parents, the mom starts crying the kids are jumping up and down on the mattresses. They're so excited. It was like the best thing. It was Christmas. And, you know, in all the things I'd been through in my life, I had never experienced that. Seeing that, like, I'd never really experienced, like, maybe I chose not to have a bed, but here's this family just trying to make it through, and like, gosh, it was Christmas morning to have a bed. So that really got me hooked on wanting to stay with the company and wanting to grow with the company and wanting to live the mission that is St. Vincent de Paul.
So where did you grow up, Sarah?
So I was born in Charleston, South Carolina. I'm the youngest of 6 kids, 8 years after my closest sibling. So I was definitely the baby of the family.
All right.
And then we moved to Idaho Falls when I was 4.
All right. Well, just talk a little more about your whole childhood and growing up.
So I did experience some pretty intense childhood trauma between the ages of 4 and 12. When I was 13 is when I first got into drugs. I wasn't slow getting into drugs. I tried them all. So
You just kind of jumped into it.
Jumped in.
Okay.
And you know, I don't think at the time I had no idea. I had no idea what it was going to do to my life, that it was going to consume my whole life. I think at that time, I was just trying to find where I fit.
Sure.
And trying to find something I felt like I could control. I think that's what really kept me to it after I started, is I felt meth made me feel more in control at a young age.
That makes sense. I mean, it's clearly crazy when you look at it from a distance, but when you're deep into that, it would make sense. It would make a lot of sense.
And I think, so when I was younger, it was like casual use. It was like on the weekends. Somehow my family didn't know. They didn't know. So it was on the weekends here or there with my high school sweetheart, the guy I ended up marrying at 17. So I dropped out of school and I got married. Somehow convinced my parents to let me do that. And when I did that, that was probably when it really churned. It went from casual use to full-blown addiction, daily use. See, the first time I got in trouble, I was 19. Okay. I got 3 felony charges. They dropped that down to 1, and they gave me wood court, which is like drug court.
Okay.
So it was my last chance first. They said they were going to give me a real intense program first.
Hoping to change the direction of your life at that point.
Yeah. And wood court did do that for me in a lot of ways for about 2 years. Then right before I was about to graduate, my father passed away of prostate cancer. And, you know, no excuses. The truth is, I think I just always went back to that as a coping mechanism. When he passed away, my dad was just an amazing person. He was my rock. No matter where I was at in life, when I was in addiction, he would come looking for me. When I was doing good, he was cheering in the stands. So when he was gone, I felt really lost.
Wow. That's quite a blow for a young adult.
Yeah. He was definitely, I was a daddy's girl all the way. All the way. And anyway, so I started using again. And about 6 months after that, I'm on the run from felony probation and parole. And I find out I'm pregnant.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I knew when I found out that I didn't want to raise a kid in that I didn't want to do that. So I called my mom up and I told her, I said, listen, I'm pregnant and I'm going to go turn myself in. And she went with me to do that.
Really?
Yeah.
That shows a lot of insights and a lot of love on your mother's part.
Yeah, she does. She loves me. You know, it's weird. We always butted heads. We're just polar opposites is what it is. But without a doubt, she loves me. I think that through all of this, so after that, there was a lot of in and outs. I could go into a lot of details about it, but the truth is I've spent 12 years of my adult life in and out of incarceration.
Wow.
With bits and pieces of sobriety, a year here, 2 years there. But then something would happen or I would associate with the wrong people.
Right.
And it would pull me right back in. Right. It was my go-to when life didn't work out. Or maybe life was working out and it was my celebration. Like the power of addiction is really hard to explain, I think. But it had me completely. So fast forward to more present time, this last time in incarceration.
How long were you in prison the last time?
So this last time I did 15 months.
15 months.
Yeah, 15 months altogether.
And what were you in? Was that partially in jail and then partially in
Yeah,
prison?
that was partially in county time getting sentenced on all my charges.
Sure.
And then I did a year over at North Thorm and was moved to PRC. So I did about 9 months at SICKI.
At South Idaho Correctional Institution.
Yep, South Idaho Correctional Institution. And I got the chance to be a part of their work program.
Right.
So yeah, I got to work out at Zirocco's for about 9 months. And I think that program...
So under that program, you were able to go out, guards went with you, and you went out along with other women and were able to go work on a site.
Yep. So
That's
I worked
fantastic.
out at Zirocco's in Caldwell for 9 months. And honestly, best thing, like the work program that IDOC has instituted is amazing because it was what I needed. It had been so long since I'd lived a regular life. And it got me getting up, going to work every day, coming home, and repeating that process. It gave me the opportunity to save some money.
Yes.
So that when I got out, I wasn't completely broke, and just got me ready to be out in the workforce.
That's fantastic. That is fantastic.
Yeah. Everybody has their trials, whether it's, childhood trauma that led to drug addiction or maybe they're poor to begin with, and so they got convicted of crimes of burglary or whatever it is. But we all have our trials. The great thing about St. Vincent de Paul is that it's a resource to help other people. It's people, no matter what their background is.
Talk about what happened then. So you were being released, or you were released from South Idaho Correctional Institution.
Yeah.
You'd been working for Zirocco.
Yeah.
For what did you say, 9 months?
Yeah.
Something like that. So you're working with Zirocco for 9 months. You were released. What happened?
So actually, before I was released, I set up my pickup with St. Vincent de Paul's reentry team.
Sure, with Mark and his team.
Yeah, Mark and his team. So they came out and picked me up from prison. They got me a food box. They got me a phone. They took me to health and welfare so I could get on food stamps. Danny even took me to my halfway house. And then 2 days later, she took me to my job interview with St. Vincent de Paul.
Wow. Great service, I must say.
Yes, it was great service. And actually, she even helped me get to work my first few days at work because I didn't have a car. I was trying to find a car, which it was incredible because I can't tell you how many times I got out of jail and I didn't have any resources.
Right.
I didn't have anybody. My family, they're amazing people, but they were just done. They were done with my cycle of addiction. And St. Vincent de Paul kind of just stepped in and was like, that first day out is you're so unsure of yourself. Even if you want to do good, you're so unsure of yourself and what's going to happen, and you're starting all over.
Well, there's so many surprises that happen on that first day out, the first 72 hours, the first 2 weeks when you're out, transportation issues and so on and so forth. Yeah. And so it sounds like it was relatively smooth operation for you in this case.
It was. She was great. She was absolutely great. And she made me feel normal. Because after you've been locked in a box, you do become institutionalized to a point. I mean, I was only in for 15 months this last time, but that structure of every day, you have the exact same structure.
Right.
So when that's gone, you're just so unsure of yourself. And Danny was just great. She just treated me with love. We talked about life. We talked about what I needed, and she gave me her phone number at the end of it and said, hey, if you need anything, give me a call. If you need someone to talk to, give me a call.
So in all of that, did you feel it? You might have felt it before too, but when you're released then, do you feel different? Do you feel different from the other people that you're walking in a crowd? Do you feel different? Do you feel like people are looking at you funny, like they think that you're a...
So I think part of it is maybe not even that people are looking at you funny, but it's like, part of it is the guilt and shame that's inside of you.
Right.
The guilt and shame of all the mistakes you've made. For me, it was I kept repeating the same cycle. And even though, I remember praying when I was in jail this last time, I said, God, take me home, or please give me the strength to change because I can't keep doing this.
Right.
And so when you get out, it's like, you're almost taking a deep breath. Like, can it be different this time? Can it actually be different this time? And going to Walmart, oh my gosh, it's too much. There's too many people, there's too many options, there's too many.
I've heard that repeatedly
Yeah.
from people that come out of prison.
When you came in the door and you sat down and you guys were just waiting, what was the thing that you thought, man, we should talk about this?
I mean, I only had like one real thought, which I don't know if you can use for that, but
You'd be surprised how good your thoughts are, Sarah.
honestly, my thought was just how good God is. Sometimes I'm in complete awe of the amazing things he's brought into my life, in big part with St. Vincent de Paul. God promises us that he can take that sin and he can separate it as far as the east is from the west. And I know that he's done that in my life.
Forgiveness and transformation are what God is so known for, and that's what God is forgiveness and transformation. And I mean, God's hope for each of us to become what we can be, that only he knows what we can be. Yeah. But to me, that's the core of everything that we do is about human potential. It's about finding people and supporting them in their journey to be what God calls them to be. Yeah. And the goodness that can come out of that, and the change and transformation of our society, of our families, of our friendships, of our just our whole community, with that transformation that is so God. Yeah. And we have the ability, no matter how horrific our life has been, how much we have hurt other people, it doesn't matter. God can forgive that. God can work past that. And as we practice that tenet of forgiveness and love and compassion and empathy, we have an opportunity to do something that is truly, truly blessed, truly special.
Well, and to take our trials, like to be able to take my trials and use them for a purpose. I get to help every day. Several of the people that work for me now are people who are going through the exact same thing I went through. And now I get to be their support.
Yes.
I get to be their hand up, their ear to talk to.
And you would have never thought at that time in your life that your experience could have value to others. Yeah. And yet that experience, that trial by fire that you went through, actually makes you so much more valuable and a tool for God to be able to make additional changes in other people's lives.
Yeah, it's a huge blessing.
It's a massive blessing.
I know that we have a lot of fundraisers coming up right now, and I know we've got a lot of good things that money goes to. What are some of the things it's going to this year?
I'll say that probably the overwhelming piece that it goes to is to fund our reentry programs. It funds our food pantry, it funds many other things, but the reentry is the biggest need that we have right now. So the bulk of all of our asks right now are focused on reentry.
So that we can help other people, like St. Vincent de Paul helped me.
Exactly, yeah. So that we can multiply your story by hundreds, so that we can this is the way I see it. We look at this whole thing, and you've got somebody coming out of prison. Everyone has tremendous value. But what's the difference when you've got somebody that comes out of prison and they go and they use drugs and commit a crime or whatever, and they're put in prison? Yeah. That's a huge cost to society. Yeah. The flip side of that is you come out of prison and you're doing productive, even life-giving work with St. Vincent de Paul, and look at how positive that trajectory, your trajectory, has made a significant impact in our whole community. And you're paying taxes instead of burning taxes. Yeah. You know, there's so many aspects of that. So I believe deeply in my heart that everyone has great value.
I agree as well.
But we can even look at it on an aggregate scale and say this has great value, not just to that person, but you succeeding has impacted so many others in such a positive way. That's the multiplier effect that we see with our reentry work.
Yeah. And I think especially with the people who choose to get involved with St. Vincent's, who choose to be a part of our mission, because then they have a purpose. They have a purpose,
Well,
and they get to go out and help other people.
There's such a great blessing too, is when we participate, and however we participate, when we participate as in giving our resources to an organization like St. Vincent de Paul to make a difference in these people's lives.
Yeah.
We are supporting our community, we're supporting those individuals, we're supporting something much bigger than ourselves.
Yeah.
So the financial help is so critical to make all that work.
Yeah.
Because the reality is good intentions alone will not make a change that we need with these men and women coming out of prison.
Yeah.
We need financial resources to be able to support that work.
Yeah.
And to be able to work for St. Vincent de Paul, what a blessing that is.
Yeah, it is.
Absolutely. We see miracles virtually every day that happen right in front of us.
Thank you for listening to the Idaho Catholic Register Podcast. Sarah's story is a powerful reminder that no one is beyond God's reach, and that with faith, support, and courage, transformation is always possible.